Okay, we'll start in just a few moments. People are still piling in, which is good. Thanks everyone for joining. Yeah, and we are very fortunate and thankful to have Clive Jordan here with us today, who's going to talk to us about the wonders of bSDD and IDS and a few more treats he has in store for us. So, Clive, I think maybe when you're comfortable, we can just begin. Thanks very much.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Hey everyone. Thank you for the introduction. We're going to talk about maximizing your efficiency with bSDD and IDS. A big focus on openBIM and how to use them in practical sense. So we'll show a couple of examples of creating an IDS with bSDD, and we'll show you how simple it can be. The agenda will be just foundations on openBIM, just to level set, and something that you can share with others if they're not open to openBIM or if they're not familiar with openBIM already. bSDD, what it is, why it's important, and how we can use it. An IDS step-by-step guide about how to create and what's included in an IDS, and then an example of those, and hopefully we'll have enough time for some Q&A at the end. So buildingSMART is the home of openBIM, and as a high-level introduction, it's about promoting consistent and interoperable data exchange across all of the different parties, the architects, engineers, contractors, owners. And if we can do that, we really stand a chance to have better communication. And those open standards, they're crucial to achieve better collaboration and also future continuity of project data, as standards will stay the same, hopefully, so that projects can adopt and use that industry data later on in the future of the project. Lots of different principles when it comes to openBIM, but it's mainly about being open, interoperable, reliable, collaborative, sustainable, and flexible. And if we can do all of these things, we are going to stand a much better chance to have a successful project as well. If you want to share something with others, there is a link here that we will put into the chat. It gives you some of the critical things that your team members need to know about openBIM. This is Nicholas. He shares some really good stories and also some videos that are embedded in this post as well. We'll share that. But that's in case you want to get anybody else up to speed with openBIM. A possible openBIM workflow that we will cover today is how you use the buildingSMART data dictionary of all the definitions and terms and all of the important information in the standardized form to create an information delivery specification, so your requirements. And then that will enable you to create some deliverables that can be checked against, and also a way of supporting a reporting and fixing of issues using BCF as well. So lots of different acronyms, lots of different terms here. Some of them might not be familiar to you, so we'll cover them in a little bit more detail. But this is the general workflow that we are going to cover today. But why is this important? Why should we even care about this workflow and these acronyms? Well, today, the traditional approach tends to be creating unstructured data, creating spreadsheets, and trying to manage that in a way that sometimes it's even difficult for humans to read, let alone in a standardized way for machines to be able to read as well. So it's great. Excel is a fantastic tool, but unfortunately, it can be so flexible that the data that's created is error-prone and ends up being troublesome for the project rather than being a solution. So the two key components that we're going to introduce today are the bSDD, the buildingSMART data dictionary, and IDS, the Information Delivery Specification. These are so crucial, and I'll hopefully be able to explain why in the demonstration as well. So first of all, what is bSDD? So the Building Smart Data Dictionary, that's what it stands for. And it's an online service so that everyone can store different properties, terms, and their allowable values, units, and also translation into other languages and the relation between those different terms and classes and properties, etc. So it's like a dictionary. So if you were to wonder how to spell a word, you would go to a dictionary, you would find out based on a search or based on some kind of similar language. It's the same sort of thing. You would be able to go to a search. So just like I search in Google, and there is let me open this in another browser. So if I was looking for something like a wall, good example, I can pull up in the Building Smart Data Dictionary all of these rich results about the wall, and that can include which classes and also all of the properties that might be associated. So really, really fast to get to some data that is useful. And if I jump back into our presentation, into our slides, we can see that it's simple to search, but it's also easy for teams that are developing software to hook into, to connect into. So it's not just going to a website to be able to search for something, but it can also be used in the application programming interfaces, the APIs, the connections into other software tools to make your lives easier as an end user. You can also add your own data to it. So if you think about this online repository, this store of really rich and powerful sets of classification systems, material lists, properties, etc., it's actually something that you as a team could also supply. So you could provide that data to the world, and it is completely free as long as it is provided in an open way. And there are some really great resources on Building Smart website to be able to understand how to do that. Once you have access to that Building Smart Data Dictionary, you can use it to start to build what's called an Information Delivery Specification. And the beauty of an Information Delivery Specification is that what you're creating is both human readable and also machine readable. So if you think about the spreadsheet example, it could be very flexible and trying to ingest a spreadsheet of data into a machine, into a piece of software. Unless it's formatted exactly how it's expecting it, it's very difficult to make sure that that's going to be passed, it's going to be understood, and it's going to be useful. So what the IDS does is it allows us to have a structure, a schema of the hierarchy and what's included and what's allowable, so that we can define something that both humans and machines can both understand. And the beauty of it is that we can have lots of different types of classification structures for all of your different project types. So in this example, we're seeing Uniclass being a choice for the Building Smart Data Dictionary to be hooked up to, so that when you create content and we search the Building Smart Data Dictionary, in this example, we search for wall and we find a whole bunch of results, which are here, the retaining wall. And as you pick from that, it brings in the code and also the name, exactly how it has been defined inside of the Building Smart Data Dictionary. So the principle is that you're able to create much more structured data using it. And that was an example for a wall. Think about the same sort of principle if you had a property that you needed. So on that property search, the same type of search, we're searching for a material. There are 69 in the Building Smart Data Dictionary. We can pick a material. It makes it much more likely that that is going to be the same that everyone else is putting into a model, and it's going to be useful. One of the things that we need to define as part of that information delivery specification is a rule to say that material potentially has to be one of several values potentially. So here we could define what the rule is that we're going to check as we are building that information delivery specification. So the verification rule becomes important. So in the example we have a retaining wall. It has to be delivered at this milestone, and we have to have a material property that is potentially in a specific piece set and specifically one of certain values. And if we then are able to create from that, so that simple concept of creating a requirement at a specific delivery point, we're able to then export an IDS. An IDS is a machine-readable XML file, and that format, as we can see here, is a hierarchy of those requirements. We're saying this wall has to have this set of properties and also within these sets of values. The beauty of being able to do this and then productize it, make it a template for future use, is that you can start to reuse, create these as sets of requirements for your information delivery purposes, for the milestones across a project, and be able to reuse and refine them as you go. The example we see here is the HVAC supply air duct needing to have certain properties, certain understanding of flow, being able to define values for the materials, I think, so pressure drop, the length of them, the system type, classification, and all of these are able to be described in a human and also a machine-readable form. We have a number of ways then to use that information delivery specification. One of them is in applications such as the creation tools. So in Revit and ArchiCAD, and using this standardized way of defining what you need to be able to start creating those deliverables, those IFC files. And we've got some really great resources here. We will share those also in the chat. And then once you have created your model as an IFC file, you would then be able to check using that same information delivery specification in tools like Celibri to be able to make sure that the model that is created meets the requirements. In our example previously, it was the HVAC air duct that had to have certain properties and the values to be able to make sure that they were within ranges, or materials were from a certain pick list of different possible alternatives. And all of that can be checked now automatically in many different tools that will be able to use the IDS that was defined as the information delivery specification as a checking process later on down the line. And then as we build those models and as we find out there's a problem that doesn't meet the information delivery specification, we start to see issues that can then be shared across a multitude of different tools that will understand another term, another three-letter acronym, the BCF. Essentially, what we're able to do is easily communicate the list of issues that are able then to be understood in lots of other tools, so that we can make those round trips and updates to the model and make sure that we are meeting the requirements. So what we talked about here was this workflow of defining an information delivery specification based on the buildingSMART data dictionary and simply searching for different terms in the buildingSMART data dictionary. Using the API that buildingSMART provide, you're able to hook that into a multitude of different software tools to be able to define the delivery specification, the requirements for each element, and all of the, maybe it's required properties, it's required values, and that combination becomes an information delivery specification that both humans and machines can read. When you're creating information, you can use that information delivery specification to create the data. So you're starting to use it to create better files as a starting point. And then it's also used when you get the deliverable to check that information. And I talked about Celibri as being a tool that you would be able to take that information delivery specification and then start using and checking I mentioned there that the ArchiCAD and Revit might be tools that you might be creating some of this in the first place and using the information delivery specification to actually enrich the models before they're checked. So there's lots of different ways that we can start to use this in our workflows. And then as we find issues, we are round tripping these in the BCF format so that teams can understand exactly what is potentially not fitting and also what needs to be done to be able to meet the specification. But what's beautiful in this setup is that the teams that are actually creating the deliverables are able to see where the gaps are and fix them before they become issues. And hopefully, as a result of a much more structured workflow to define information requirements and to create better deliverables, we will end up with less and less issues reported in and round tripped in this workflow. That is the hope. Some more resources. We have the lots of videos. We will share those in the chat. And this one here is a great one, talks about the challenge that buildingSMART set to define an information delivery specification using the buildingSMART data dictionary in the last summit. Look forward to seeing everybody hopefully in Valencia in a few weeks' time for the next buildingSMART summit. But there's some really great resources here, and this one we will share hopefully in the chat in a second. Another resource, building information delivery specifications. This one here about how to do that and some steps to be able to do that. So I'll also put this one in the chat so you can take that one away. Another great resource here is being able to understand the structure and the makeup of an information delivery specification. In the background here, you do see the code, and sometimes that can be very unnerving for some teams that are not maybe so technically capable. But inside of this video, we break it down and we can show you exactly the parts and understand how to build up, even writing it in using text and building up an information delivery specification, the structure of it inside of the code. I feel like I've been rattling off and running a lot of information your way, but the key principles that I wanted to share, the foundations of openBIM. So the principle of everyone having a standard that we know is going to be there in 10 years, 50 years, 100 years time, so that teams can build data today that is going to be useful and actually interoperable and available for other teams in the future. We talked about the buildingSMART data dictionary being a service from buildingSMART that allows you not only to source information from, either typed in a search bar like Google or searching through an application programming interface through an application, through a piece of software, but also somewhere where you can put your information. So if you would like to supply a standard that you are working with to the buildingSMART data dictionary, that is entirely possible. And it could be as simple as sharing a spreadsheet of information or a JSON file, depending on how technical your teams are, so that that can get uploaded into the buildingSMART data dictionary and be available for everyone. The second part of the sandwich here is not just having access to that data in a structured form, but also being able to combine it and deliver it in an information delivery specification, an IDS, so that others can use that information delivery specification to contract for, to help build the deliverables, and then also to check those deliverables as well. And the autonomous checking workflows that can be undertaken when you have a specification that machines can check against means that you'll end up with less issues as you go through that workflow. And then we looked at some practical applications of an example with a wall and with an HVAC supply air duct, and how we can define specific properties and also use those right the way through as we build and we are checking. I really thank you for being here and for your interest in the information delivery specification and the concept behind openBIM, because it really is the way forward and it is the way that we should be working together.
Clive, thank you. That was great. And as I hope you can see, you're getting some applause virtually listed.
Love it.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll make the video available online.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for attending, everyone. Let us know what we can do to help you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.